Once upon a time in the kingdom of Elandria, where the rivers sparkled like ribbons of glass and the air always smelled of roses, there lived a young princess named Seraphine. She was beautiful. Yes, her hair shone like sunlight on gold, her eyes like morning skies, but beauty was common in royal halls. What made Seraphine different was her heart, or at least it once was. For you see, Seraphine had grown up adored by all, her every wish granted, her every sorrow soothed. Courtiers praised her smile. Artists painted her grace, and everyone told her she was the most perfect princess the world had ever seen. And slowly, the praise became poison. She began to measure worth by beauty, kindness by charm, and love by flattery. One summer morning, while the castle prepared for her grand coming-of-age celebration, a maid entered the throne hall with trembling hands. "My lady," the maid said softly, "the roses of the forgotten garden are wilting. They have not bloomed in years. The gardeners say the soil itself has lost its magic." The king sighed. "That garden has been silent since your grandmother passed. It was said her spirit kept it alive. Let it rest." But the maid added quietly, "The queen once said, 'When the roses fade, so shall grace fade from the hearts of the royal line.'" Seraphine frowned. "Nonsense. Flowers cannot rule hearts." Still, something about the maid's words lingered in her mind like an echo she could not silence. That night, curiosity drew her from her chambers. Moonlight washed over marble halls as she followed the wind down, forgotten corridors to a small iron gate, covered in vines. Beyond it lay the forgotten garden, once the pride of Elandria. But now the air was heavy, the fountains dry, and the roses, once crimson as dawn, hung lifeless and gray. She stepped inside. The moment she did, the vines seemed to tremble. A faint voice whispered through the leaves, "Who dares disturb the sleeping roots?" Seraphine turned, startled. "Who speaks?" From the largest rosebush light shimmered, and a figure appeared. A small, glowing creature with wings like glass petals and eyes like dew. "I am Ilariel, spirit of the garden," said the fairy. "Once your grandmother's kindness gave this place life. But when her grace faded from the world, so too did its magic." Seraphine crossed her arms. "Then why do you blame me?" "I did not wither your roses," the fairy's voice softened. "No, child. But pride withers faster than drought. Beauty fades when the heart forgets to care," Seraphine scoffed, yet she felt something sting deep within her chest. "I am not proud," Ilariel smiled sadly. "Then prove it. 3 tasks shall test your heart. If you succeed, the garden will bloom again, and with it, your kingdom's grace. But fail, and it will die forever." The first task began with dawn. Ilariel led her to a crystal pond at the garden's center. Its surface was dull, like fogged glass. "Look into the water," said the fairy. "See what your heart truly shows." Seraphine knelt and gazed down. At first she saw her reflection, perfect, composed, serene. But then the image rippled, twisting. Her face turned cold, her smile cruel. She saw servants bowing not out of love, but fear. She saw the lonely eyes of her own people, the ones she had ignored from her high balcony. "No," she whispered, stepping back. "That is not me." Ilariel's voice was gentle. "The mirror never lies. Heal what you have wounded, and the pond will clear." Tears filled her eyes. For the first time, Seraphine realized how blind she had been, how lonely she truly was in her own kingdom of praise. She returned to the castle at sunrise, and quietly, without command or crown, she walked among her servants, helping an old cook carry firewood, listening to a young maid's song. By noon, laughter echoed softly through the kitchens, laughter that had not been heard in years. When she returned to the garden, the pond shimmered clear as crystal once more. "The first task is done," said Ilariel. "You have begun to remember humility." The next day, Ilariel led Seraphine to the far end of the garden, where a broken fountain stood, surrounded by wilted ivy. "In this fountain lives the memory of every tear shed by those who were wronged," the fairy said. "To heal it, you must mend a heart beyond your own." Seraphine hesitated. How can I mend another's heart? By seeing their pain as your own. That evening she rode into the village, without jewels, without guards. There she found a young boy crying beside a ruined stall of flowers. "My garden's gone," he sobbed. "The rain took it. I wanted to sell flowers for my mother's medicine." Seraphine's heart ached. She took his hand and said, "Then we shall plant them anew." All through the night she helped him replant every seed. Her gown torn, her hands covered in soil. The boy never knew who she was, only that she worked beside him with kindness. When the dawn came, the first flowers bloomed, pale and small, but alive. At that very moment, back in the forgotten garden, the fountain began to flow again, singing with crystal-clear water. Ilariel appeared once more. "You have learned compassion, the second bloom of grace." The third task came with storm clouds. "The last test," said Ilariel, "is the hardest. It asks not for what you can give, but what you can lose." Lightning flashed as the fairy led her to the garden's center, where one last rosebush stood, completely blackened. "This rose holds the heart of your kingdom," said Ilariel. "But its roots have turned to stone. Only a heart willing to give everything can wake it again." Seraphine knelt before it. "What must I do?" "Offer the thing you value most." Her eyes filled with tears. "My crown." "No," whispered the fairy. "Something deeper." Seraphine thought of her beauty, the praise, the perfection that had once defined her. She hesitated, trembling. Then she whispered, "If my beauty has blinded me, then let it go." She touched the dead rose. A brilliant light bloomed, wrapping her in golden glow. And when it faded, her reflection in the petals was no longer the same. Her golden hair had turned silver as moonlight, her once flawless skin now freckled with gentle age. But the garden came alive. Roses burst from the soil in every color of dawn. Vines climbed the walls, fountains danced, and light spilled through the branches like blessings. The storm cleared. Ilariel's voice trembled with joy. "You have passed, princess. The garden lives, and so does your soul." When the people of Elandria awoke, they saw roses blooming even in the streets. The air smelled of spring. Birds sang from towers and trees that had long been bare. And when Seraphine returned to the castle, silver-haired, humble, radiant with peace, her people knelt not out of duty, but love. The king wept, seeing his daughter transformed not in form, but in spirit. "You are your grandmother's child once more," he whispered. Ilariel appeared one last time in the sunlight, smiling. "Remember, princess, grace is not the bloom but the seed. Water it always with kindness." Seraphine spent her years tending to the garden and the kingdom alike. She opened its gates to all, rich and poor, noble and child, so that everyone could see what true beauty meant. When she passed many years later, the roses never withered again. It was said the wind carried her laughter through the petals, and that every spring the garden glowed a little brighter, as if remembering the heart that once brought it back to life. Moral: true grace is not found in beauty, wealth, or praise, but in humility, compassion, and love that expects nothing in return.